Lindsey, what's in your lens today?
Well, your favorite topic, Epstein. So at this point, the Jeffrey Epstein story isn't just about a disgraced financier or a sealed set of files. It's about trust. And right now, most Americans do not have it. A new CNN poll makes that painfully clear. Only 6% of Americans say they're satisfied with how the Trump administration has handled the release of Epstein-related documents. 6. And nearly half of Americans, 49% to be exact, say they're dissatisfied with how the Trump administration has handled the release of the documents as well. And perhaps the most telling part is this. 67% of Americans believe the government is intentionally holding back information that should be public. That's not partisan noise. That's a credibility problem. Because despite the Justice Department releasing thousands of documents under pressure from Congress, officials admit those represent less than 1% of what they actually have. Less than 1%. Meanwhile, the DOJ has acknowledged potentially more than 1 million additional Epstein-related documents are still under review with no clear timeline for when or even if the public will see them at all. This matters because Congress didn't politely request transparency, it mandated it. A bill passed overwhelmingly in the House and unanimously in the Senate required the full release of Epstein documents by mid-December. Not only has that deadline come and gone, but the administration has also failed to explain why so many files remain redacted, another requirement written directly into the law. And that's where the frustration turns into suspicion. President Trump has grown increasingly irritated by the focus on Epstein, particularly as the midterm elections loom. But political annoyance doesn't override public accountability, especially when the documents that have been released include photos of Trump alongside Epstein, images the president says reflect a social relationship he ended years ago, which he maintains involved no wrongdoing. Former President Bill Clinton, we have to mention that, also appears in multiple photos, and his team has accused the administration of selectively highlighting those images. Again, no allegations of wrongdoing, but the selective transparency only fuels the perception that this process is not neutral. And perception matters, because while the administration insists more attorneys are reviewing files, FYI, there are roughly 500 people involved in reviewing these files now, Americans are still being asked to wait. Meanwhile, outside Washington's marble halls, the public conversation is not slowing down. A group calling itself the Secret Handshake put up a massive installation on the National Mall, a 10-foot replica of that birthday card allegedly sent to Epstein bearing Trump's name, featuring a crude sketch and the line, "Happy Birthday, and may every day be another wonderful secret." Trump denies writing it and even sued the Wall Street Journal over the report, but the symbolism is hard to miss. Now, this is not about art or spectacle. It's about a government that promised transparency and delivered delays. When Americans across party lines believe information is being withheld, not protected, not responsibly reviewed, but intentionally held back, that erodes confidence in institutions already hanging on by a thread. So at the very least, Robbie, if you can't agree that Epstein, since you got me brought into this Epstein mess in the first place,
this is
and
my fault.
now you're backing away from it, saying it doesn't matter, because that poll also showed that a lot of Republicans are like, even people who spoke out, Lauren Boebert, I believe, kind of like, there's nothing I can do right now. I want this to see it through. It'll happen when it happens. I have to worry about the economy. Like, this is her response to people. It's like people don't believe the government. And since we already both agree that...
Not believing the government is...
Yeah, we agree that people in the government are not doing enough. Effectiveness is at an all-time low. We agree on a lot of those things. So when they can't do something as simple as releasing documents to allow transparency for Americans, I mean, what is the holdup? Even though the pictures came out, I said Bill Clinton should testify. He should get up there. And President Trump should release or provide a deposition. Like, yes, these all should happen. I don't have a problem with this. I'm not defending Bill Clinton. I think people want to understand how somebody who is this gross of a person that has been convicted was allowed to get away with this for so long. It's not about the victims. It's not about the people that you think may be performative and that we don't have information on that have gotten millions of dollars. For me, it's about the fact of who allowed this to happen, what money was being spent.
Who allowed what to happen?
Who allowed Epstein to run amok for all these years without him? You know, it was a blind eye. I know, but a blind eye was turned for years. And there was indications that many people might have seen or known this when he had famous friends and when he had rich friends and government friends. And so we need to understand the process.
It's not as mysterious as people think. He was prosecuted and the evidence was not as compelling as people might think it seems to us now. because of the testimony from the victims not being reliable enough in many cases. So he got what seems like a lighter kind of prison deal, but now that it's been explained to me, is very characteristic of the situation where the evidence is weak.
Oh, this is just so normal to you. Everything, you went from riled up about it to just like, oh yeah, just this is par for the course. I just can't accept that.
I accepted new information when it was given to me. I was like, this seems weird. And then my friend Michael Tracy, who I've interviewed on Rising many times, walked me through, who is he's not looking to cover for Trump. He's not a conservative. He's not a Republican. He's just someone who believes in due process, which is something I believe in too. And so I looked at it more closely and was like, oh, all right.
So what about the rest of the people that would like to see this information released?
We can release.
I mean, it was a law that says they should release
all the information
so now,
because people are not satisfied with the information they have, and he agrees with that too. We need to release the information. We need to know more about who was involved to set people at ease about the potential, I think, foreign connections is the main thing. Mm-hmm. The idea that he was an intelligence asset for a foreign government is disturbing, and it is true that Ghislaine Maxwell, through her father was connected to a foreign intelligence agency, so there's a lot that looks odd at a glance, but close up starts to already become clearer. And I'm also convinced that people are never going to accept any amount of new information because people have been tricked into thinking or been hyped up into thinking by podcasters into thinking that into some of the administration people.
Okay.
Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. Dan Bongino could not satisfy the hype that he created when he got into government and is now leaving government. So he continues saying things that he knows on the other side that his claims didn't hold up, and he could not manufacture evidence for the claims he was making before he was in government, and now he's going back, so he doesn't have to. He's fixed that he had his eyes closed, and then he opened his eyes and could see, and was like, oh, it doesn't look anything like what I thought. Okay, I'm going to go back to closing my eyes. That's basically what he did.
Pam Bondi, don't forget.
Yeah, all those people. Well, she doesn't know anything, but they tricked themselves into thinking they were going to find evidence that enemies of President Trump, the Democrats, Bill Clinton and others, were themselves complicit in gross underage sexual violations. In the same way the Democrats are now convinced they will find evidence of that with Trump. And guess what? Neither side is going to find evidence that their political enemies were involved in a pedophile ring because they weren't. They just weren't. Sorry. Sorry you convinced yourself that.
I hope that's the case. But that's why if you release 1% of the documents and everyone is looking for all the information that you said would be released and now is mandated by law, people want answers as to why so much is heavily redacted of that 1%. And then furthermore, why it's not being released. Like there's 500 people. I looked into this yesterday. There's 500 different lawyers and people working on combing through these documents. Like, what's the timeline? If there's not a realistic timeline to happen in mid-December, then what is that new timeline? You should still tell people. You can't just sweep this under the rug. I know it's not going to be the number one issue for the midterms, but there's still plenty of people that were riled up about this that you said are never going to be satisfied. Well, they're certainly not going to be satisfied with 1% of the documents.
I think there's more to learn about from a financial the intelligence angle, which I said, his tenure in the Virgin Islands and his relationships to powerful people in charge there, his relationships with banking associations, and sure, his ongoing conversations with people, Bill Gates, Steve Bannon, Stacey Plaskett, there's Larry Summers, there's 4 of them that span the political spectrum. So this is not trying to get Democrats or trying to get Republicans. There's 4, and there are a couple others that are still communicating with him after his release. Stacey Plaskett, Steve Bannon communicated with him within, the final years of his life. Mm-hmm. They were texting with him. So that, yes, we can learn more information about that. But you're going to find embarrassing things for those people that should be publicized. You're not going to find that they're trafficking in pedophilia, those people. That's too sensational a claim.
All right.
Next up, Don Lemon is on the DOJ's radar after his coverage of an anti-ICE protest in Minnesota. Stay with us.